In fact, if the wind did start blowing, it would probably warm up. And
do you still have school?
in fact, yes, we do have school. School is there. We will have school all the way. It's to parents. It's up to the parents if they want to send their kids between 50 and 60 below. It's up to the parents. But they never, of all the 32 years that I've been here, there was 1 year that they closed school down, and it was because it got too warm. And we got those freezing rains, and then it was too dangerous to pick the kids up at their stop. And so the bus barn is actually the one that shut school down for that day. And so we don't have necessarily anything that's called snow days. And in fact, when it snows here, it does warm up. So it warms up here to snow. And because what happens is when there's cloud cover, it holds the heat down. Without cloud cover, the heat just dissipates up, and that's what makes it so cold in here. And then, interestingly, in the summer, not only are we 10 degrees colder in the winter, but we're also 5 degrees warmer in the summer. And so, in fact, we get warmer than anywhere else in the entire state in the summer as well, at 104 above being our record high. And so we don't have any huge bodies of water to offset that temperature extreme, and so we get quite a bit of extremes. And even in fact, overnight in the winter, it could be maybe 40, 50 below, and then we can get a Chinook wind that comes from the Japan area, come up, make it over the mountains, because typically the mountains are so high that it doesn't allow for that. But when it does make it over, it blows in. We can get almost 100 degrees difference overnight. And so it could be, 40 below, 50 below, and then the next morning it's like 20 above. And that does devastating things to the road. You may think we never work on our roads, but in fact we're endlessly working on our roads, because what will happen is the ground is never colder with the blanket cover of the snow. The ground is never colder than 12 degrees. And so what will happen is the big frost or permafrost, just ground that has been frozen 2 years or longer, is all in the ground. And when it's so cold outside, that frost sort of rises right to the ground level. Well, then when we get that wind in here and it changes so drastically, then that frost takes a dive and it tears up all the roads and everything like that. And that's why we always have constant problems with the roads. And I'm going to pull forward just a little bit farther. Sorry, I wanted everyone to be able to see this great little cabin, and we'll take our pictures and stuff. But again, I'm going to try to do everything from the bus, so those that don't care to get out don't have to. Okay, now off to our left-hand side. We'll be getting out in just a moment, but you'll notice this is a mock trapper's cabin. Now, I say it's a mock trapper's cabin because it is about 4 times the size of what a normal one would be. This thing is enormous. This size of a cabin would probably manage a family of 10, and just because of the size of that thing. And so the idea behind a trapper's cabin was that it was a location for you to have on your trap line, that as you trek through the woods, it would take typically about 20 miles a day is how far you could go on a pretty good run. And so they would set these about 20 miles apart on their trap line, or on their mining strip, where they're mining and checking things out. And the idea it came from a Scandinavian design, and that Scandinavian design, the idea of it was maximizing insulation with the least amount of resource. And because they're going to make this or build this from the logs that are on the land, and so what they would actually do is they would dig a hole. So that's the other reason why this is not totally authentic. They would dig a big hole, and then they would lay that dirt off to the side, or that sod off to the side. Then they would start building the cabin inside that hole to use the ground as insulation. And then they would put that spare dirt, we don't want to waste any of that insulation potential, and they would stick it on the ceiling. So there, as you notice, or in the roof, on that roof, you might notice like what seems like a 1/4 inch or something of sod on top of that roof, which is totally unrealistic. I mean, we're talking 2 to 3 feet of good sod is what you wanted up there. You wouldn't dare go for this little wimpy layer. That wouldn't do anything. And so anyway, so that was the idea behind this design. Then the other thing that stands out tremendously is that window. That window is about a Bohemia-sized window. You would never waste that much heat on a window on your cabin. So if you can picture this cabin
down to where the bottom of the window is in the ground, and so there's just a few logs out the top of the ground there, and the window size would maybe be just big enough where you can get a couple rays of light in. That's about all you could manage. And the problem with that was what we call now, we're now official. We used to just call it cabin fever, but now we functionally have seasonal effects disorder syndrome. And so we're official now. But essentially what that is a lack of vitamin D produced by sunlight. And so anyway, so that causes us quite a bit of struggle up here. And again, I mentioned earlier that we had 5 times the national average for suicide, 5 times the national average for alcoholism as well. And so those statistics tend to come stemming from the condition of lack of sunlight causing problems. And so anyway, so that was so that gets us going. So I'm going to stop talking for a moment. So anyone that wants a picture up at the cabin, you know, I'm going to stand off here by the little sign over there and snap off some pictures and try to get it as quickly as possible. And I'll put a little bit of the White Christmas on for you guys, for those that decide to stay on, and we'll get going that way.